At the time of filming this video, I was struggling with the sections side candy B and side candy A. I struggled with it because I did not read properly. So I want to make you aware of that because I had problems with it, and it was just because my brain wasn't working right. When I compared everything, it wasn't making sense to me. And the reason was because I did not read properly. The pattern on page 8 specifically says side candy A. And I referred to in the video, throughout the video, I think it's until the last clip, that I referred to it as side A candy. Now, that's where I ran into problems. It is side candy A and side candy B. The way I was reading it, it just wasn't making sense to me because I kept reading side A candy and side B candy. Had I read it properly, I wouldn't have had any problems. The other thing is, I have construction going on right outside my condo unit, and they are making a terrific amount of noise. So I'm trying to do these videos when they're not using their chainsaws. So to explain this, you have to read it the right way. We have side candies. These are our side candies. And the side candies, there is an A candy. There is a candy. Refer up over here. We have an A candy, and then we have a B candy. If you read it that way, it is correct. The way I read it was side A candy and side B candy. Trust me, I was confused. Once I got it straight in my head that it was a side candy and there was an A and a B candy, then it worked out and I had no problems at all. It's just the way my brain was looking at it, and I just didn't look at it properly. So make sure that when you're reading it, and throughout the video I apologize because I do refer to it as side A and side B, and that's not correct. So ignore that and just do what I tell you in this section and refer to it as a side candy, and it is an A candy and a B candy, and it's on the sides. I apologize for that, and I apologize for having to do voiceover in some of these sections because of the simple fact that the construction was quite noisy. So let's get on with it, and I hope you enjoy the video. Good morning, everyone. It's Shirley here. Today I'm going to be working on the side candies. I'm referring to the pattern booklet, page 33 and page 25. Side A candy, side B candy. Your patterns will be found for side A candy on page 8 of the pattern booklet. Side B candy will be found on page 9. Side A candy is going to be in green and pink, and the B candy is going to be in the purple and the orange. So let's get right into it. for side A candy, for the color placement, I'm going to give you the placement for side A candy. S1 is going to be pink and T1 is going to be pink. On the center section, which is the R unit, R1 is pink, 3 is pink, 5 is pink, 7 is pink, and 9 is pink. Green will be 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, and everything else will be cut from white fabric. For the B candy, it's going to be in the orange and the purple. For the orange sections, X1 will be orange, Y1 will be orange, and we're going to start with W2, which will be orange. 4 is orange, 6 is orange, 8 is orange, and the little one here is 10, and that will be orange. 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 will be your purple. Everything else will be cut from white fabric, and we're going to be making 6 of these. We'll have 3 on this side and 3 on this side, and they'll be alternating. So let's get right into that. This is side A candy that I've cut out all my pattern pieces from the fabric. I've cut 6 of each of the little units, and I've laid them out on my design board. After cutting out all my pieces, I've taken them from my design board and I've laid them in numbered order the way they're supposed to be stitched together in the unit. This is side B candy, which I've done the same thing that I did for side A candy, laying it out on my design board. For side B candy, I did the same as I did for side A, taking each one of the units and laying them in number order the way they're supposed to be stitched in the unit. I'm now working on the W section of side candy B, and I've taken my first W1, I've taken it from the bottom of the pile, placing it under the W1 section and pressing it into place. Folding it back along the line between W1 and W2, and I'm using my template plastic to make sure that I've got it on the correct line. Trimming away with my add a quarter ruler. I'm now going to be taking the W2, which is my next one, taking the piece from the bottom, putting it into position, and doing a double check to make sure that I have it in the right spot. And I'm going to be taking that now to the sewing machine and stitching along the folded edge of the paper. I've done that. Now I'm going to fold everything after I use my water brush with the precision piecing solution. And giving it a finger press before I take it to the iron. I'm going to turn it over and give it a press from the paper side. I'm now working on the W3 section. Trim away. I have my pieces all laid out there, so I'll put that into position, and remember, take the bottom one off. And again, positioning it and double checking to make sure I have it correctly placed. I've stitched that section down now, and now I'm going to water brush again. And finger press. Ooh, I'm using my seam roller. I'm now going to be going on to W4. I'll take W4, put it into position, and take the bottom piece off. Double checking my placement. And I'll be taking that to the sewing machine and stitching along the line. I've completed up to W9. The next section I'm going to be working on here is the W10, which is a very tiny piece, so I'm making sure that I'm folding it along the correct line. Double checking. Taking my bottom piece, putting it into position. I do a lot of double checking, don't I? Okay, I've got it stitched down now. Finger press, and then take it to the iron. Straighten things out a bit here. Okay, now I'm going to be working on the white sections. I'm going to be working on W11, which is my first corner white piece, making sure I fold it along the correct line. Taking the W11 section and positioning it, getting ready to take it to the sewing machine. Okay, I've done that. Water brush again, finger press, iron, the next section is ready for me. I can see it. It's going to be W12. I'm making sure that I folded it along the line between 11 and 12. Trimming. Now I'm going to take my pattern piece and lay it in the position it's supposed to go. Take the bottom piece, put it into position, double check, and stitch that. The next piece I'm going to be putting into position is W13, which is on the left corner when the pattern piece is facing up. Using my template plastic again to make sure I'm folding it along the correct line. Missed a piece. W13 is the piece I'm placing into position now. And again, doing my double checking. to make sure everything is positioned right, so I stitch on the correct stitching line. W13 is now in place. I know where oops, I missed a piece there. So W14 is the next piece. Using my template plastic to make sure I get it folded exactly on that line between 13 and 14. And 14 is the last piece I'm going to be sewing on this corner. Laying it out so I know exactly where it's going. Remember taking the bottom piece, and I'll be stitching W14 into place. Okay, W14 is now stitched in place. For the next one, it's going to be 15 and 16, which will be on the bottom left. And I'm going to continue on putting my pieces on, and I'll be doing that off camera. So I've got those stitched down now off camera, and now the last thing is to trim along the dotted edge, which is the cutting line. There's going to be a bit of bulk there. Trimming the 4 sides. Don't know what I'm doing there. I paused for a minute, but must have thought of something. Okay, I've got all the 4 sides trimmed. I'm going to take my freezer paper off, and the first unit is done. I'll be completing 4 more. I have 1 unit of side B candy done, and now using the same piece of freezer paper I'm going to continue on until I have all 6 W sections completed. Freezer paper will hold everything. When I stitched these together, I was able to use 1 piece of freezer paper to do all 6 W sections. Off camera, I've completed the W unit, and I've also gone ahead and completed the X and the Y units. I've chain pieced the Y unit to the W unit. I've chain pieced now the X unit onto the W unit, and I've back stitched at each end of the units, clipping them apart. And now we're going on to the pressing section. And I am using my Acorn Precision Piecing Easy Press pen. Normally I use the water brush, but I found I needed a little more liquid on the pieces when I am pressing them open. And I did decide to press my seams open. I found that if I left the liquid to soak into the fabric, it made it much easier to press those seams open, and they laid much flatter. I sort of pressed it to one side, and now I'm taking my point turner and I'm just separating and opening the seam. I'm going to be pressing it with my fingers just to get it as flat as I can, and using my point turner again just to get in between the seams and open them up. I'm giving it a slight press with the point turner. And like I said, I did find that the more moisture you can get onto that seam, and even leaving it for a while to soak in, made it much easier to press those seams open and have them laid nice and flat. I'm being careful not to stretch any of the seam there so it doesn't distort the block itself. Having a little problem there. Sometimes my fingers don't work. But getting it nice and flat and pressed open. That little extra moisture with the Easy Press pen definitely does make the seams easier to lay flat and have them lay nice and flat and open. I'm just taking my time here, finger pressing it again, just trying to get it to lay as flat as possible. There is quite a bit of bulk in these two seams here. Now, because I've added the extra moisture to the seam itself, I need to press and dry it out with my iron. It's taking a little bit of extra time. These are the last two that I'm working on here. I did do the others earlier. And that seam is becoming nice and flat. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over and just give it a nice little press there. Make sure it's laying flat before I hit it with the iron. And iron it from the right side. I'm trying to dry it out as much as possible. Just get that moisture out of the seam. And I'm being very careful not to distort the block because it is damp. Just checking from the wrong side and seeing if everything's laying down nicely. And then now I'll go on and do the last one. Again, I'm going to use my Easy Press pen and put a fair amount of moisture on the seam itself. And I'm pressing down. I'm not running my Easy Press pen along the seam because of the moisture. It could distort the seam and stretch it out of shape. I'm not using my seam roller on these seams because of the amount of bulk that's in there. It just seemed to bump over it rather than pressing it flat. Just taking my time. Trying to remove as much moisture as possible. And again, laying it down so that the right side is facing, and I'm making sure that my seams are laying flat on my wool pressing mat. I think this was the hardest part for me, was pressing those seams open and getting them to lay nice and flat. But I did get good results. We have to try that one again, press it down again. I'm a little OCD, I think. Checking to see how dry they are. And there, we've got them. I think I'm happy with them now. Let's tidy up here. Okay, now I'm tidying up my design board. I'm using a piece of freezer paper just to take some of the threads off. I couldn't find my lint roller, so we used a piece of freezer paper. Okay, now we're working with the Z and AA sections, and I cut them a little bit bigger, and now I'm going to trim them. Oh, look at those fingers go. Not quite right yet, is it, Shirley? Now I'm going to trim one edge along the dotted line. I lined up the other edge with the cut edge. And remember, the right side of the fabric is facing down. The wrong side is facing up. I'm not trimming the ends because I will trim those off after. I'm getting these all cut and put into position. With freezer paper, it's much easier to trim these because the freezer paper holds the fabric very straight, and I don't have to try pinning that pattern piece on. Okay, now I'm going to be chain piecing my Z and AA pieces together. A little bit of fuzz there on that side. Clean it up. Placing right sides together. I'm going to use a Wonder Clip to hold those pieces together just until I can take them to the sewing machine. Line them up as close as possible. I'll realign them when I take it to the sewing machine. Oops, now what am I doing? Oh, okay. There we go. I've put the right side of the fabric up now. Wonder Clip it. Line them all up, getting them ready to put on the sewing machine and chain piece them. I had a problem with that one. Whoops, 2. I only want 1. There we go. Last one. Okay, I think I'm happy with that now. Now I'm at the sewing machine and I'm chain piecing them, and I am using a 1/4 inch foot and just lining that foot up on the edge of the fabric. I'm also using a stylus to make sure that everything stays together and slowing down at the seams. Now here, when I come to the end, I'm going to backstitch, but I don't backstitch right at the very end. I backstitch a 1/4 inch in from the cut edge. And the reason I do that is because if I have to trim off, if I've backstitched right at the very edge of the fabric, I'm cutting off that backstitch. So I want my backstitch to be a 1/4 inch in where the seams are going to join. And again, using my stylus to make sure that my seams don't flip. And again, stopping a little bit before the end, doing a backstitch, and then just coming right off the end. Also, when I clip my threads, I will pull them from the machine, but I always back off a little bit. There you can see I've used a little leader and ender there. Clipping these apart, and then I'm going to go on and put the other piece on the side. And I've done that already, and now I'm going to use my Easy Press pen, and I am going to switch to the other water brush to do this, but I started out using the Easy Press pen. And just running that along the seam line. These ones don't have to be as moist as the other seams because I'm pressing them to one side. Finger pressing first, and then pressing with the iron. I'll do this to all of the pieces that I have in front of me there. They've been chain pieced, so now it's just the pressing. And now I'm going to take my 1/4 ruler and just trim off any of the ends there that I left oversized. I just didn't want to be short on the ends there. Oops. There we go. Ah, looks pretty good to me. Tidy up, Shirley. Yes, you have to do that. Side candy A and side candy B are completed. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.